Today we're at Magic Kingdom, which sits on 107 acres of land, but that's only a fraction of the roughly 30,000 acres that Disney owns in the area. To give you perspective, that's about the size of San Francisco. But it got me wondering, why did Walt pick Orlando? It was majority swampland, it can get hot and muggy, but to get all those answers we have to go all the way back to the 1940s.
The original concept for a Walt Disney theme park dates all the way back to the 1940s. Walt would take his daughters up to Griffith Park up in Los Angeles where they would ride the merry-go-round. This is where the initial idea for a theme park came from. He wanted to create a place where children and adults could have fun together.
I felt that there should be something built, some kind of an amusement enterprise built where that the parents and the children could have fun together.
The idea sat for years, but on August 31st, 1948, the first design document was made referring to the park as the Mickey Mouse Park, and Disneyland was born. Disney purchased his first plot of land for Disneyland back in 1953. Construction for the park only took about a year, with it starting in 1954 and being completed on July 17, 1955, with 35 rides, attractions, and exhibits. Over 28,000 people attended the park on opening day, and roughly 90 million people watched on TV. So great! Walt's done. He made a theme park, he's all good, he can pack up his bag and get out of there. Why would he need another theme park if he already made one? Well, as time went on, he realized there were multiple issues that appeared in the process that couldn't be solved with Disneyland. Firstly, he wanted more control over the experience you had in the surrounding area, not just inside the park. As time went on, tchotchke stores and other tourist traps popped up, and it affected guest experience. Another issue came up with accessibility. At the time of its creation, 75% of the US population lived east of the Mississippi. This meant the majority of the US couldn't even visit the park. And lastly, he had big ideas, not just a theme park, but a city, something that would require a lot more land than the small plot he purchased in California.
Yesterday, Disneyland and the New York World's Fair. Tomorrow, a project so vast, it has already been called a whole new Disney World.
Early concepts of Walt Disney World showed Magic Kingdom, the main hotels, the monorail, stuff you think of when you're talking about Disney World. But something else was included as well. Something much different than a theme park.
Here we are in front of this beautiful golf ball, the EPCOT ball, also home for Spaceship Earth. EPCOT was always a part of Walt's initial plan for Walt Disney World, but not in the way at all as it currently stands today. EPCOT stands for the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, and that's what it was supposed to be. Not a theme park at all, but a hub for business, industry, living quarters, lots of other forward-thinking ideas that Walt had for the future.
EPCOT was originally meant to be the heart of Walt Disney World. This giant eyeball was designed to be a space for people to live, learn, work, and play. It was meant to be on the cutting edge, something that pushed the boundaries of what city life really looked like.
I don't believe there's a challenge anywhere in the world that's more important to people everywhere than finding solutions to the problems of our cities. But where do we begin? How do we start answering this great challenge? Well, we're convinced we must start with the public need.
Travel was a big focus with EPCOT as well, creating an intricate highway system along with people mover style vehicles that would travel about the property, taking you from A to B quickly, safely, and only using electricity. Walt's goal was to have other large companies test their new ideas at the property and use EPCOT as a constantly changing testing ground for new ideas and innovation.
The 6 million people who visit Disney World each year will look behind the scenes at experimental prototype plants, research and development laboratories, and computer centers for major corporations.
The City of Tomorrow, or the central hub of EPCOT, was set up into layers and shaped a bit like a bike wheel. Walt explains that you could travel through the spokes of the wheel, and it was designed that way to get to and from certain areas quickly.
Picture a wheel. Like the spokes of the wheel, the city fans out along a series of radials from a bustling hub at the center of EPCOT.
The center was the business and commerce section, then we get to apartments, then recreation land, and lastly, a space for homes, neighborhoods, and low-density streets. There was even a passageway underground where cars wouldn't have to be above, and there would be less traffic.
In fact, a vast armada of vehicles will continuously flow through the heart of the community, traveling below the pedestrian level on roadways reserved for specific types of vehicles.
Along with all of this, there were plans for a massive 1,000-acre industrial park. This would have been where a lot of EPCOT residents would have worked. Obviously, the original goals for EPCOT never took shape, but if we look forward to today, there's a lot of remnants that still exist. The people mover, the agricultural side of living with the land, a lot of the original ideas at EPCOT with interventions. EPCOT also had a planned shopping center, and that concept kind of turned into Disney Springs, so you can find remnants. But we're getting away from the original question. Why did Walt buy in Orlando, Florida? We know now that he needed a lot of space for these big ideas between the park, the hotels, EPCOT, industry space, and more. It was going to take a lot of space to bring all these ideas to life. So far, what we know is he wants to be on the east side of America so he can get a new audience of people. He wants to have more control. He wants to get rid of tchotchke stores and other tourist traps, and he needs a lot of space. So where can you get a lot of space for cheap? Swampland. Walt first flew over Bay Lake in November of 1963 to see what he thought of the location. At the time, it was majority swampland, but there were a few deciding factors that made him choose the area. Walt really liked how close the land was to the McCoy Air Force Base. This would eventually go on to become the Orlando International Airport in 1975. Another big deciding factor is how close the park was to the intersection of I-4 and the Florida Turnpike. This would make it easy for anybody traveling to the area to get to the park.
As you can see on this map, we have a perfect location in Florida, almost in the very center of the state. In fact, we selected this site because it's so easy for tourists and Florida residents to get here by automobile.
Speaking of traveling to the parks, can you imagine living near Walt Disney World? Well, we can with our sponsor, the Ken Posick Group. You want to buy a house, you want to buy a rental property, a townhome, you want to sell your home in Orlando. We would love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can reach out today at info@posickgroup.com or visit theorlandoreal.com/real to get started. Now back to the video. So great. Walt's got it picked out. He knows he wants to buy in the Orlando area, but he needs to purchase a lot of land and he doesn't want anybody knowing about it. He wanted to keep the development of the park completely hush-hush. He didn't want anybody to know about a second park. Good news is, in the early 1960s, it wasn't very difficult to buy a lot of land in the area, considering the majority of it was swampland and most of the landowners were just happy to get rid of it. To keep things quiet, the land was all purchased over 60 separate deals under proxy companies that were made under different names. There's actually a window on Main Street where you can see all of these names above some of the stores. One of the most notable names being Reedy Creek Ranch. This would go on to be the name of Disney World's governing jurisdiction and special taxing district. When purchasing the land, the agents had no idea who the client was, and some of the land was purchased for as low as $100 an acre. When it was all said and done, Disney had spent about $5 million on all the property, and they walked away with roughly 30,000 acres of land. To keep things secret, they waited to file the paperwork until all the land could be placed under the Disney name. But regardless of how bad Walt wanted to keep this purchase a secret, it was impossible to hide such a massive purchase of land, all happening in close proximity to each other. Rumors started to circulate quickly, some including ideas that the purchases were being made by Henry Ford, the Rockefellers, and NASA. Disney subtly denied the rumors and announced a $50 million investment in California to kind of throw things off. In 1965, Disney denied the rumors directly in an interview with the Orlando Sentinel. People didn't buy it, so Walt Disney and Florida Governor Hayden Burns had to give a formal announcement, calling the endeavor the Florida Project in November of 1965.
Well, you see, the initial stage here has to top what we have, or at least be the equivalent of what we have now in California.
Right as things were starting to get underway, and Walt made the iconic video talking about Walt Disney World and EPCOT and all of these concepts, he suddenly passed away on December 15th, 1966 from lung cancer. So that left his brother Roy Disney at the reins with this massive endeavor. So he led the team in creating Magic Kingdom, the Contemporary, the Polynesian, Fort Wilderness, and more, with the opening date of October 1st, 1971. Only 3 months later, Roy would sadly also pass away. So what would happen to EPCOT? You would really need a visionary, somebody like Walt, to lead such a massive project. Well, sadly, there was no visionary, and the idea was completely abandoned by the board with the passing of both Walt and Roy, or at least in its original form of a futuristic city of tomorrow. It was decided to keep the name and some of the original spirit, but instead of a city, create another theme park akin to Magic Kingdom. So in its new, changed form, EPCOT stood as a space for exploring the future of technology through walkthrough exhibits, exploring other countries through World Showcase, and experiencing attractions and shows where you could learn and have fun at the same time. The Wonders of Life Pavilion was my favorite, and now it sits as a sad reminder of what once was. As EPCOT stands today, it's trying to find new footing as more of a theme park with many attractions that don't explore the original ideas of Walt's vision at all. EPCOT will be ever-changing. It was never supposed to stay the same. All I know is I'm glad he chose Orlando. Without Walt Disney World, Central Florida and the state as a whole wouldn't be the same. Growing up here, it crafted my childhood and made me into the person I am today. It did the same thing for millions of others, and it will continue to do the same for years to come.
I love tomato soup so much. Well, that concludes our little history piece today. Hopefully you walk away knowing a little bit more about Walt's initial vision and what he had planned for Walt Disney World and why he bought here. This video is brought to you by the Ken Pozek Group. Are you looking to move closer to the magic, into the Orlando area? We would love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can reach out today at info@pozekgroup.com, or you can go to theorlandoreal.com/real. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for future Orlando content, and let us know down below what you want to see us cover next. It really is delicious and messy. How you doing, Goofy? Nice to meet you. The chain or the microphone? Got you, thank you. You like it? Thank you.